Hey, I'm getting set up for y'all here. Nope, nope. Let me go back. I started this once and it didn't go well. All right, there we go. This is my case study of Evie Hicks. Um, when I talked to Mama, which I knew Mama, I'd had the twin boys a couple years ago when I was a para in kindergarten. So it was easy to talk to Mama and Evie. She knows that Mama knows that Evie loves reading, um, but she knows she struggles with reading. They have 4 kids. They have a teenage girl, the set of twin boys, and Evie. So that gives a lot of scheduling situations for them. And she is aware that she does not allot enough time to read or set aside for reading. They do homework because you have to do homework, but they don't set a lot of time aside for reading and vocabulary and talking to them about what they read. And she understands that. They're just a busy family. Evie likes reading things she chooses. Mama finds it very difficult to get her to read something that she's not interested in. And there's no history of reading difficulties or disabilities, so it's just the lack of either Evie not loving to read or not understanding what she's reading. Her teacher is Mrs. Bell. She taught pre-K for 9 years before she had her sons, and then she was at another district, and she came to our district and taught first grade. She taught pre-K there at the other district. We have interventionists at school. By first grade, the interventionists are used if somebody had been in intervention the year before, RTI'd, but it's also a big part of teacher discretion. If you get in there and you feel like the kids don't really know what they should know or not where they should be, they allow us to send them to them. And then we discuss who needs to come out, who should go in. We kind of do that. She does small group instruction based on their ability and needs. She figures out who all needs to work on a certain area and puts them together. And for comprehension, we have a program called Accelerated Reader. You start it in first grade. You have to be able to read the book independently and take the test independently. You can only take it at school. So you have to comprehend what you read and remember what you read. And this is the part where Evie doesn't like is most teachers let you pick out a fiction and a nonfiction book. So wherever your interests lie, most of the time you don't want to read something. So, and that's what Mama was saying. If it's something Evie's not interested in, she kind of shuts down, doesn't want to read it. And this kind of sums it up. I did my math wrong, so I had to fix this. Evie had 49% for a full scale. And I really believe she has a love-hate relationship with reading. So it's kind of like, I love to read, but don't like to read. I don't like to read when I should be playing. I don't like to read when I could be doing other stuff at home. And that's probably where Mama's deal comes in, is because, you fuss enough, right? And you won't have to read. And then here's your teacher telling you have to read. So it's a push and pull. And she does comprehend what she likes. Sometimes we don't always get to read what we like, though. In our taper, unfortunately, a couple of years ago, and I'm not really versed on what exactly happened, but I think if you look at, scroll down to in the 4th grade a couple years ago, we were below mastery of what the state was. and those ratings came out. We ended up with a D. And so now we're on a growth plan, which because COVID kicked us out last year, we didn't get to prove anything. So it's kind of been a mess. Of course, it's my school, my district, and I will fight against it. We didn't deserve a D, but numbers are numbers, and it's how they work them out. Part of the deal is, the attendance rate, and this was pre-COVID. I mean, attendance rates go back a couple years, and we were at 95.4%, which sounds great for a grade, but for a principal, when you see 95%, you're like, ugh. I mean, because that means a lot of kids are out. A lot of kids are out. And so, that takes a toll on, if you're not coming to school, you're not learning. We are a district of economically disadvantaged kids. We're very diverse. We do have a rural school district here that is not so diverse. But somehow, some way, whatever, a couple of years ago, we had 194 graduates, and we typically run about 200 graduates a year, and 130 of them were economically disadvantaged. So that goes to say a lot for the district. Not that we don't have a lot of things to work on, but, kids stick with us and teachers stick with them. So for the PASS test, and y'all got my cheat sheets here because my old eyes can't see. Evie she did okay. I'm not just, I think this was a really long test, and I get shutting them down. I probably would have done this test in chunks had I been able to. I think it's just a lot to throw them, because telling them to delete a sound here and then delete a sound there, it's kind of confusing. So I would probably work on a skill or similar skills in a setting. But anyway, but I did find this rhyme house activity where Evie could have the little rhyming, it's a little house, and you put the words you want. And it's not really for rhyming, it's for sounding out words and blending words and isolating a sound. So I thought she could benefit from that, because she did well. Letters, sounds, quite honestly, everything she really needed to know in kindergarten, which I did have her in kindergarten last year too. I forgot to mention that. She knew. You get to first grade and beyond, and that English language gets a little tricky. And I was really disappointed that by, when did we do this? Like February, that she really didn't master some of these things. Whether she's ready to move on or not, I don't know, or her retention of it, I'm not really sure, but I was kind of disappointed in that. For the letter naming, I'm sorry, I spoke on that earlier. I jumped ahead. I should have said that in the last slide. Sorry, I'll just keep going here so I don't bore y'all. This is where she did fine, and then she just started just cutting out. And it's all the R-controlled vowels, the multisyllabic words. She just kind of lost. And I don't think it was STEAM, because this test wasn't so incredibly hard at a sitting. I just think she really didn't know. So I did find an intervention that had these are controlled combinations just to work on for repetition. And I also found, and I didn't put them here, they're in my paper. There's it's a spin, it's a spin tic-tac-toe thing. So if you spin and you can tell what a word is, you get to put your X or O down and try to do a tic-tac-toe. And also, you just say the word, and it's a bingo type. It's a bingo type thing. So you say the word. If they could tell you what the diphthong is in the middle, then they'll be able to cover it up. So I thought that was helpful. On her high frequency words, she missed all, or she got all but one, which is the word do, which we have in kindergarten. So that's, just a fluke. I do think if I would have gone on to grade 2, there are words that I know we've had in kindergarten, and I'm sure she's reviewed up until now. So she was pretty good there. So this wasn't an intervention, but it was, I think, for me, an enhancement of just not only can you read them, but can you spell them? And obviously, in the last test, Evie doesn't spell her words correctly. So, like the word down, she may not be able to spell it. She can read it, but she may not be able to spell it. So, in this game or intervention, you do it as a peer thing, and they say a word to you, and you have to write it down, and you take turns doing that. So I thought that would help her just be able to write it, not necessarily just say it, because you'll see in a minute her writing sample shows that she needs a better spelling. Oh, there we are, spelling. So Evie missed a lot of the double vowels. She missed silent E's, which the silent E's are so hard. I'm doing that right now. And, I showing them some words today. It was make. Well, make has a long vowel A, but then here's the word come. Doesn't even follow the rule. So you're just like, so it's incredibly hard. I see where somebody who's a struggling reader would have difficulty with this, because, it's your best guess sometimes, or you just have to know it. So this was a baseball thing, and so you have the word. If they could tell you what the double vowel was that went in the middle of it, they got to move to a base. And of course the goal is to get home. But each time they missed a word, they got out. So 3 words, you're out. So it's just a little fun way to do that one. I also found, which I don't have here, for all of, and I know there's that fancier word than a sneaky E, but where's my clover? But I also saw a way to make mad into made, plain into plan. And we've done some of this in class for my students this year. And for the words it works for, it's great. Like I said, the other words, you just got to know. So here's her writing sample. Handwriting, fine. I mean, she wrote legibly. She had spaces between her words, punctuation. She did make one mistake in her thoughts. But if you'll notice, she doesn't have a great vocabulary, because she writes like so. Well, that's just a way to take up space and add words. Excited. I mean, that's a hard word. So I'm glad she spelled that out. She doesn't know spring break. Well, she didn't know her double vowel sounds. She used the sneaky E word. And again, she's just compensating for what she does know, which, still as a beginning writer, you know, uh, you'd be thrilled to at least have her put this on paper. So her grammar could take some enhancement. And I found this little turtle, and it's just a way to kind of get your thoughts, because when Evie was had her tell me about the story first, so she didn't have to think and write at the same time. So I said, tell me about you on spring break. And so she already had some sentences she had told me. And I said, okay, let's put that on paper. But for her, I think being able to prompt her with some questions like I did, and maybe some more organizational thing for her where, some examples, and you could tweak this to whatever you're talking about. But, what do they eat? What do they look like? Just if you're talking about an animal. So I think that categorizing stuff for her would help her have more of a form of a sentence. I was thrilled. I wasn't disappointed. She was going to Urban Air, and she did spell urban. So she left out air, which, see, air, that our controlled word, would be hard for her, so she left it off. She's just going to go to urban. She left it at that. So I think that would work for her. I also did find these are just some descriptive words instead of so. She could have some descriptive words: cheerful, what's this say? Caring, smart, just descriptive words instead of using so, and very. Because later, as she becomes a writer in a different grade, those aren't going to fly. She didn't have a benchmark on this because she was a first grader. She struggled on things in the classroom, which were odd because we were in a classroom, so she could have just looked around, but kind of stumped her. And of course, the food and the animals were a lot better, because that's just things you like. The states, as we predicted, the states would be hard because she started out with Paris and whatever. So I found this, but this was an action word ring. But I also think that you could tweak it to do, fruits. I mean, you could literally list fruits. How many fruits can you name? And just go through them, and, how many things in a classroom? Let's add these to our ring. And so I think just having to think about things in a category, whether it be descriptive words, action words, or just some nouns that you're looking for, I think that would help. Vocabulary, like I said, Evie talks. Well, I didn't say this. Evie talks. She loves to have a conversation. You can tell that her family talks to each other. She can talk all day. She just can't put it on paper. So vocabulary wasn't a problem for Evie. So she understood the similar meaning to things. That wasn't a problem. So mine wasn't an intervention here, but it was an enrichment. Or what's a better word for huge? Enormous. So I think to expand, like I just said about the writing sample, I think Evie needs to expand what she's saying. Now, getting her to spell enormous ain't happen, but just getting in that thought process of talking like that would probably help her in the future. Evie, because Evie was a first grader, she didn't have to do the maze. I did read a passage to her so we could get something from the retelling, just to see her comprehension skills. She was iffy. She could remember character settings. She knew that. She could tell you the problem, how they solved it. I don't really know that she couldn't have put it in sequential order, but she just kind of bounced around the story, and only when I prompted her to kind of go back and think about something in the story, she then she said, "Oh yeah." So I think she could have sequentially put it together had I had something in front of her where she had to do that, but she didn't do that just in telling me. So I found just this real simple, you could even do it on strips of paper where they have to glue it, but they have to read the story and put it in sequential order. So I think that would help for her. Evie struggled here. She did, and this is because she does have a hard time. Oh, I almost forgot it. That's this other comprehension. There was a comprehension wheel where it would say stuff like, who are the main characters? What is the title? What is the author? Now, Evie did well on this. It was, but that would be good for somebody who cannot start from the beginning. So Evie had a hard time, of course, the double vowels. She had a problem with that. And then, some words you just have to know. Like how. Well, I mean, that's the double vowel, but not double vowel, the owl. Oh, let me pick the word I was looking for, though. Like night. I mean, some words you just have to know. And so I think that if Evie there's this dry erase example where when it's words you just have to know, then it's just repetition. You just keep writing them down, look at them, see them, something. I mean, there's really no way. Like I had a little girl today, she struggles with the word said. Well, you just have to know it. You can't sound it out. And bless her, she'll try to sound it out every time. So I think for irregular words, it would help. I mean, honestly, I think the only thing that can help is just the repetition. Just keep doing it over and over again, So I think that would help for her. I'm trying to hold my dog down, y'all. So the oral reading, she did pretty well. I say that. I mean, her words per minute were 56%, which isn't fabulous. But again, I just want to really know, do you know what you read? Because you can read as fast as you want, in my opinion. But if you don't know what you read, then it's not going to do anything for you. So, but this goal for her age in the spring was 60. And so she fell within that marker. She reads in chunks. She doesn't read fluently. It's more concentrated, and like she's really paying attention or trying to figure out what she's reading. So that does slow her down. So, again, even though I'm not a big fan of it, there is a time test where they can read something and they have to write down, or the other kids get to time them. And I'll talk about that in my reflection in a minute. Not a huge fan of this intervention. But some kids actually like the challenge. So it may work for them, especially if they are a fluent reader, and the more that, the more words they can read, I mean, they may find this challenging. Evie, in the Charles stage, it's first grade, beginning of second. So technically, she is where she's supposed to be. Um, I do think that she will struggle. Um, I just talked to a parent today, because we're talking about persuasive writing in kindergarten, and you think why? Um, so according to Charles' stage, she is where she's supposed to be, which is great. My fear for her is that we know in the real world of teaching that it's almost like we're making them be a year ahead of where they should be. So because she isn't writing fluently and she isn't reading fluently, she's almost going to start out next year behind. So that's kind of disheartening for her, because these poor kids, they have to know more than they should have to know at each age. So my reflection is, can y'all tell I'm not a fan of time tests? I don't like the kids know. They know when you're ticking off stuff. And I don't know about y'all, but my memory is not the best. So I have to tick it off. Even if, you can do the whole clipboard trick and the whole whatever. And we even do a test on the iPad, and I have it propped up to me where they can't see me. But they know when you're pushing buttons. And so I just, but on the other hand, I get it. I barely have time to give the test in the first place because we have so much other stuff we have to do. So I get how we can't drag everything on forever, and there has to be some kind of a time limit. I just think, to be fair to the kids, it's timing them and giving them just so little amount of time to show what they know is kind of disheartening for them, and I do hate that personally. I did have a lot of takeaways from the interventions. I like learning things without reinventing the wheel. There's a lot of fancy stuff on Teacher Pay Teacher, which, don't get me wrong, I buy into some. But there's also some old school. The room I inherited, the lady was there for 30 years. And when I cleaned out her room, love her to death, I went through and I thought, you know what? We haven't used that in years, because I'd worked with her for 14 years. And I thought, there that is. It gets buried because they give you so much stuff and they whatever. And they pile all this stuff in. They want you to try all these new websites and all this standard stuff, which I do find from the Florida website is good, old school, doesn't take a lot of creativity, just some old school interventions. So I don't mind. I like that. I'm always open to a new idea. And so that was the biggest takeaway from this process for me, was some of the interventions that I could use. And I don't know if I'd actually use them for interventions. I just may use them for stations so I can see where they're at. I didn't get to the minute games this year. COVID has really kind of thrown everything off. We've been in quarantine and this, that, and the other. I've been through 3 assistants this year. It's just been kind of a mess. So, but I will. I do. I actually have a book in my classroom somewhere that was from that other teacher that has something similar to that. They just weren't called that. But now I have that book to use for myself. One of the other things is, like I said, because I have been at this for a while, I was modeled of how to teach it. I never knew the correct term for it. So all the Clover stuff, I could tell you how to teach it, but I don't know the name from it from Adam. So I'm really going to have to study for that. So I am glad for the resources to have that fresh on my brain for the test. And then, of course, my biggest go-to was the Florida Center for Reading Research. I liked reading Rockets. it was a lot of articles, and so you had to sift through it to find some interventions sometimes. And of course, the source book, I did like that, and I'll use it more for stuff in the classroom than interventions. So I hope everybody has had a successful year. I pray that next year is as normal as we could all hope it would be. And I've appreciated everybody's support and help through this crazy year. Y'all be safe and have a great summer.